All right, so what are we doing here today? We're going to be looking at the infamous Lowa Z8s. These, you'll see them called the Z8S or N, depending on whether they're made in suede or nubuck. I got these in brown because there was the tan, didn't really care for the tan. I'm using these more for hiking in Canada, not in the desert environment, so I got the brown. Blacks looked okay. I like the browns because usually I have brown pants when I'm hiking and they matched well. Good boots. If you ever find them on sale or the opportunity to get them secondhand, go for it. Retail, they can get a little steep, and we'll get into that. But these boots are world-renowned pretty much all over the world, especially with like the U.S. and Canadian military. I'll dive a bit more into that as well. Mostly because they're just tough as nails. They have from what I've heard online, very rarely do you have a catastrophic failure, like a sole separating from the boot or anything like that, or eyelet coming out. It does happen, but overall, they're just tough boots. So I want to bring us actually to some slides, and we can go over kind of the history of Lowa, why are they unique, and maybe how they became so popular. All right. So here we are. Lowa Z8s. So Lowa's popular because there's three pretty cool things about them. There's a few things, and we'll get into them all. Lowa's are sourced primarily in Europe, through their materials and their manufacturing. And you can see here that it's primarily in Germany, Italy, and Slovakia. So that's pretty cool. I mean, there are some decent quality products that do come out of China, but usually premium boots you rely on for your life, especially if you're in a military environment. You're usually getting a locally made boots, right? Whether it's in Europe, in Canada, the US, or one of those countries. They've been making these boots since 1923. So there's some history behind them of where they even have some military contracts, including the Wehrmacht during World War II. And that's all they do is they specialize in boots. And that's something that's pretty cool. You know, like compared to Solomon, which does like all different types of stuff. These guys just focus on making good boots. Another thing they note on their website is they make boots with a polyurethane midsole. And we'll get into this as well. They also make polyurethane injected outsoles. Not a lot of companies do that. We'll get into manufacturing, but you'll see how most of the time when it comes to boots, there's the upper, which is made of leather or some textile, and the bottom is glued on. Very rarely is it put into a special mold and the insole is injected into it. For sure, military supplier, and also they're 9001 compliant. This is easy to kind of ignore or miss in some boot manufacturers. I haven't seen it in a lot. Like I haven't seen this with Danner or anything else. I'm not saying they're not ISO certified, but Lowa is, and they really promote it, which means they have very little errors in manufacturing. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's like 0.01% manufacturing errors. And that's really important for when you're spending a pretty penny on these boots, like upwards of $400 sometimes. You want to make sure you're getting a good quality pair that doesn't fail on you in the field. We're going to watch a video together. We're just going to look into their history. So let's go for it. It's going to be about 2 minutes. I'll give you an idea of what their background is.
In 1923, while hyperinflation rages in Germany and the price of bread spirals to astronomical heights, Lorenz Wagner from Jetzendorf in southern Germany sets up a shoemaker.
Nice mustache.
At his parents' home. In 1936, he's already employing a workforce of 54 employees in his shoe factory, the Ilmthaler Schuhfabrik. The machines are running flat out. In those days, they have an output of 13 horsepower. The first generation ski boots are made of leather, bear the names of mountains. The Kreuzheck model is designed for the 1936 Olympic Winter Games held in Garmisch. In 1952, Lorenz Wagner hands the over to his daughter.
They totally just skipped a few important years there.
Who together lead the shoe factory into a new era. From then on, the company is known as Lowa, composed from the first two letters of the company founder's first and surname, Lorenz Wagner. Lowa launches its first marketing activities. The mountaineering and skiing shoes are a huge success. The new strategy, Lowa equips expeditions, consequently climbs the highest mountains in the world. 1992, Lowa succeeds in revolutionizing ski boots with the development of the Lowa Air model. 10 years later, Lowa creates a new category with the Trekker mountain boot, an important milestone in the field of outdoor footwear. At the end of the 1980s, Lowa finds itself in financial difficulties. To secure jobs, the Lederer family decides to sell its shares in the company. In 1992, Werner Riedmann takes over the reins of the company. 1 year later, the Italian company Group Technica acquires Lowa. The ski boot business is transferred to Italy. From this point on, Lowa concentrates on the production of mountaineering boots. The year 1997 sees Werner Riedmann and his design team celebrate a huge success with the introduction of the Renegade to the market, the boot that becomes a world bestseller. In 2000, Lowa passes the mark of 1 million pairs of shoes sold. Just 10 years later, this figure will have risen to 2 million pairs worldwide. The year 2019 is a decisive year in the company's history. Lowa acquires its long-standing production partner. Over 2,000 employees now work for the company. Alexander Nikolai becomes CEO and has since managed Lowa together with Werner Riedmann. Lowa celebrates its 100th birthday in 2023 and produces over 3 million pairs of shoes. The brand is one of the most important producers of high-quality outdoor shoes worldwide.
Cool. So that's a quick history of Lowa. Now manufacturing. You may have heard they talked about the Renegade, their #1 selling boot. This is very unique as well in that initially the Renegade, I believe, had a glued-on outsole, but they've since updated the manufacturing to have the polyurethane injected. Here's a video of a short clip of it, of actually you see this process. And this is relevant because they do the same process for the Z8. And another note, if anybody hear anybody call it Lowa, you know it's now Lowa pronounced. There's a polyurethane midsole. This is them getting the midsole in, ready for the, attached to the boot and ready for the injection. And there's the sole injected on. That's why these things tend to have so little failures and sole separation, which is the most common sort of catastrophic failure for a boot. That's it. So yeah, like I mentioned, these things are really popular in the military, really comfortable. They hold weight rather well, meaning that if you're rucking with like 50 to 60 pounds, I find this boot's comfortable enough and supportive enough. If you're going over that, in my experience, usually you want a stiffer boot. And they have stiffer boots like that. I think their models are like the Breachers and things like that. But otherwise, the Z8's pretty light for what it is. Yeah, so here's some features and some details about it before I get into the cleaning and show you how to sort of maintain this boot. Relatively lightweight for a full-featured high-ankle boot, right? These are 8 inches high. It's 1,450 grams a pair, so about 3.2 pounds. $440 Canadian, last I saw. So that's steep. Right, so you definitely want to try and get these on sale if you can. Again, they're a quality boot. I'd say they're kind of worth it if you need them and you need a good boot and you're headed out somewhere where there's a long sort of like an expedition. Definitely worth it. And I'll go through the description with you. So with the Lowa Z8S, GTXC, Lowa has created a robust boot that is both very stable and lightweight. It is perfect for missions performed on challenging terrains and for marches with medium heavy packs. The 8-inch, 20-centimeter high upper made of tough suede leather provides optimal support. At the same time, the durable PU material used in the sole that comes in various degrees of rigidity provides exceptional cushioning and stability. The waterproof lining with a Gore-Tex membrane creates an optimal foot climate, even during sweat-generating activities, 100% made and sourced in Europe. Z8S GTX is certified according to the ISO 2012 following characteristics: anti-static sole, waterproof upper, heat-resistant, fuel-resistant, and slip-resistant outsole. So yeah, looking at the features here, you can see there's the PU injected outsole, adds robustness, really rarely comes off. And there's these iconic, I guess you could say, chevrons on the boots. This is how you just spot Z8s in the wild. So you can see the laser perforations on the suede. So not only is suede rather breathable as it's looser fibers compared to like a full grain leather or a polished leather, there's also these laser perforated, or I believe they're laser perforated. Either way, they're perforated. I actually had these boots fail on me in the field. You'll see this tacked loop here. This actually came out. Now, Lowa was really great. They fixed it and warrantied it for me, and I honestly don't know why they did this. I'm going to show you another pair of boots, the Zephyrs, and you can see that they don't have this tack here with this loop. I think it's something to do with the positioning. Like, this is a flex point, so they didn't want to put this rivet here, as it might go into your ankle or hurt mobility, but this is definitely something I'm surprised they did. Like I said, suede adds breathability and flexibility. These needed very little break-in. Once they were broken in, they feel like a pair of sneakers almost, so that's pretty cool. And of course, textile shaft with padding adds breathability. Now, so we're going to get into this boot cleaning and maintenance, but a Gore-Tex boot, that's suede especially, needs very unique care. You can't just polish this with some shoe polish or throw some wax on it, mink oil, or any type of thing on it. You need to use a dedicated GTX cleaner and protectant with some DWR on it. The reason is if you do have a Gore-Tex membrane, you could look at this white section here. This is your suede. This needs to breathe and let moisture escape, right? Rain puddles may or may not bounce off your suede. After you protect it with some DWR, yes. But if you protect it with oil or something, you're locking moisture in, and then you've pretty much wrecked the breathability of the boot. So you always want to use a GTX approved cleaner. Going into like the suede, you can see here is like a full grain suede. This is usually like your black polished boot or your brown polished boot that's treated. When we look at the nubuck is really just the top layer sort of shaved off, of where it's a very still tight grain structure, but it's usually a little tougher, and you have these for robustness, so they don't breathe as well. What the Z8Ss are made of is the suede portion, where you see the fibers are much looser and much more breathable. Some comparison things you might look at is here's the Z8Ns. Interestingly, so they are more expensive because it's nubuck. But the nubucks are a little lighter. I suspect because they use a thinner leather, right? So it is nubuck, it is shaved, it is a tighter grain, but yeah, it comes out a little bit lighter. So maybe the manufacturer is even a little different on this. These are the Zephyrs. These are also very popular in the military and the hiking world, of where this is considered like the lighter sort of brother to the Z8s. You can see here there's much less leather, right? These are made of suede, I believe, and they have the rivets here. Now, so they have tacked ribbons here, but these are much lighter stress points. Like, you don't get a lot of flex or pressure here when you bend your foot. When you bend your foot here, there's a lot of pressure, which is nice that they have the metal and they have the lace locks. If you have the opportunity to get the Zephyrs, they're a good option as well. I haven't used them, but I think if I could renege and do this purchase again, I might look into the Zephyrs because I like the lace lock, I like the rivets up here, and I like the lighter weight. I think that's it for the deck. All right, awesome. So now that you're set up, you know what you're looking at. Here's the Z8s. So I'm gonna get these cleaned up and I'm gonna get them waterproofed again. So for these, I'm gonna start pulling out the laces. Get this stuff out so I could get a good treat. So the clean suede, even if they're muddy and gunky and crappy, these are just a little dirty. I took them on a 1-week expedition to the West Coast Trail. So they're nothing horrible. There was some mud, but you're rarely using like a major cleaner or detergent. You're not using saddle soap on these. You're really letting them just dry out, and you're brushing the dirt out from the suede, because you don't want to wash too many of the oils out or add any unnecessary oils to it. So if you get these super gunky, get them wet. Wash them out, get as much mud as you can out, brush it out, let them dry, and then use a suede brush, which we're going to do now, to get out any sort of fine-grained particles. All right, so let's do these first. Let me zoom in for you guys here, show you them. Yeah, so here's the Z8s. Good working, good looking pair of boots. These have lasted me for a while. Soles are still dirty as hell. I haven't got the dirt out of that from West Coast Trail. But you can see there's very little wear. I've put in a few 100 kilometers in these from rucking and hiking. So yeah, I've heard of these for some people lasting easy 5, 6, 7 years. So that's another part you have to think about when you do the price, look into the price and what you pay for these. All right, so my tools today, we're gonna have just a regular brush and you have your suede brush. So these ones, I'm gonna zoom in. With these things, you have like sometimes these little bristles, rubber, and you have these metal and plastic bristles to kind of get more dirt out. There's also this guy, which is kind of like an eraser to get rid of dirt and everything else as well. I might use this, but mostly I'm going to be using these two to get these clean because the boots aren't so dirty. Yeah, so let's get all the dirt you can out because we're going to be using a DWR treatment for these. I'll show that to you in a minute. Getting the laces out is not always a thing you have to do, but it's always kind of nice to do a deep cleaning because you get all the dirt and crap out that's locked in the gusset here, this section over here, and then eventually that does have wear and tear. You can see a bit right here actually from just dirt built up and caught in this section right here. You can see a little bit of lint. Yeah. Should I burn that and just seal it? I might just leave it. I don't want to burn it and seal it. Actually, just for the sake of the video, I might just burn it and seal it because it's probably a synthetic, so it'll work well. Okay, let's do that. Use this brush, get all the dirt out, all the dust. And then we'll use the metal brush again a bit just to get any hard crud out. And I mean, man, just this regular brush after you let the boots dry, looks pretty good, man. Almost good enough. We're going to like these boots a lot. And these boots this one did not have a catastrophic failure. Well, I wouldn't call it catastrophic, but it was a failure and did piss me off when I was on the trail. I'll show it to you in a sec. All that dirt out. All right, let me show you the failure. So, can you even see it here? Yeah. All right. So, where the failure was right here. They've restitched it and they fixed it for me, but this whole thing tore out and it was just, you could see inside and you could see the Gore-Tex lining on the inside of here. And so what I did is I relaced them. I relaced the boots and I did not use these loops. A part of me thinks I just don't even want to use these loops at all anymore, just in case they get pulled out again. You can see they put another sort of stitch in here as well, so they reinforced both sides. But they should have never just even used this ribbon and tack here. They should just put in another rivet, in my opinion. All right, let's get these clean. So I'm just using the kind of metal wire brush to get some of the edges and tips. Again, there's not too much dirt I need to get off of these. It's all been sort of crusted off. Yeah, we're looking pretty good here. We are looking pretty good. All right. That's good. Let's get that lighter and yeah. Now you can see this section. I'm going to try and zoom in for you guys here. Yeah. You can see it right there. We're going to burn that off and hopefully not destroy the boot. Yeah, that's really all I want to do. That's good enough. Perfect. We'll stop it from fraying too much. Over here, there's not much. Do a little bit. There you go. Sweet. You can see how that just got burnt up. I'm going to actually burn it just a touch more. Rub it a bit. Yeah, good. There you go. Cool. That should help it from fraying too much. Okay, again, this is just a textile thing with the Gore-Tex underneath. Meant to kind of help the boot breathe a bit more. And there's your gusset. You can see the gusset does go pretty high. Gusset goes right up to here, which is good. That means you can step up to about the second eyelet from the top before your foot will get wet. So that's always a good reference to look at and know of where does your gusset go up to when you're wearing a boot. You know it goes up to your second eyelet. So if you're sinking into the water and you're going above this third eyelet, you know you're pushing it close. You might just get your boot dunked full of water or mud or anything. So never let it go above the second eyelet. Okay, so these are clean. They're ready to go. They're ready for their cleaning. This is the stuff I use. This is Nick Wax, Nubuck, and Suede Proof. Ugh. And here it is. This stuff I've used before. I definitely recommend it. There you go. Get this stuff. This works really well. And this is what adds some oil and protection back into your boot, making it more waterproof. Also, conditions it as well. So this is water-based. So sometimes they say you could wet your actual boot in order to make this easier to absorb the Nick Wax. And then you let the water evaporate, and what's left behind is some of the oils from the Nick Wax to protect it, and the DWR to make it more water resistant. I am not going to do that today, add water. I'm just going to use the Nick Wax itself straight on. And you have this little sponge applicator here. So let's get this saturated. Just squeeze it out. Yeah, you can kind of see how there's still some protection and some moisture up on this, right? So once you rub it in, though, you do break that barrier and then you get that absorbed. And so you do want to get this saturated. There you go. Perfect. After you do this treatment, and if you do it properly, after it dries, water just beads right off it. And it's hard to get it to absorb. Don't be shy with this stuff. You want it saturated to get deep down into the suede. You can see the laser perfs I'm going over now too. That helps with the breathability. I'm not going to treat this with the waterproofing all the way up. Don't need to. Just the parts that really get exposed to water. I'd say on a rare occasion, if these get really dry and crusty because you just haven't been taking care of them and they're like, you do something crazy like leave them out in the sun to dry or whatever, or by heater, then you might make the exception of adding a little bit of some type of oil. And I'll show you that in a second to kind of add some moisture back, but you'd want to do it sparingly. Yeah, and how often am I treating this? Every couple of trips. It really depends on what's happening on the trip. After West Coast Trail, where if you guys aren't familiar, that's a trail out in on Vancouver Island in British Columbia, where it's really moist. There's a lot of water. You're walking through mud all day. Definitely after that, where there's a lot of moisture just eating away at the leather and the oils in the boot. That way it replenishes the suede. There you go. That's really it. Let's get it all saturated, especially the bottom part, and you just leave it to dry. I'm going to put that over here. Let's get this other boot going. A part of me does wish they put the gusset all the way to the top here, all the way up. Akus do this often, and then you just know if your whole foot and boot is going in the water, then you're getting wet. You don't need to have that rule of, oh, keep it below your second or third eyelid. but the majority of manufacturers do manufacture that way just for ease of manufacturing. It costs more money to have them the gusset all the way to the top. You want to get in these little sections inside the chevrons. I don't know the design intention behind having these chevrons here. I think it adds a bit of rigidity and protection onto some of your medial arch here and your toe. That's what I think it's for. It also adds a bit more to adhesion, making it less likely for the boot to separate. Again, the Renegades don't have these, and I've never heard of the sole separating on those. So I'm pretty sure this is not too much for adhesion. It's more for protection. Yeah. Let's get that in there. And this is what keeps your leathers protected and the oil's in there. So this is the best sort of protection you can do is prevention, right? Stop your boot from drying out. Now I mentioned doing something crazy where you leave it by a heat source or in the sun. That's a thing that can wreck your boot, is too much heat too quickly. That'll dry it out, it'll destroy the oils, and you don't want to do that. So always let it dry naturally. See the spongy applicator? One shitty thing is it's coming apart. So I can't rub too much. That's the thing with these. Yeah, get every little crevice. There you go. Awesome. Clean up my workspace a bit. There you go. And so they look ugly as hell now because they're all wet, but once they dry up, they'll look good. I'm going to just wipe up any excess. Yeah, so as far as boots go, they do feel pretty light. They're definitely not as light as like a trail runner if you're doing like through hiking and stuff like that. I love having the boots. I like having my ankles protected. I like having the stability because I tend to carry heavier loads. So I'm a big boot guy, as you can tell. But I do like light boots. I don't want needlessly heavy boots. That's for sure. Another thing, the injection urethane, which is harder here than the brown part. So the brown part you can actually feel is softer than the black part. So it is a dual density. This sole is great. It works well on ice. So if you're wearing this in cooler weather, these are not insulated. So you're not going to be wearing them where you're standing still in maybe, I wouldn't do it anything less than 0 degrees. If you're under, like you're minus something, you're going to want a different insulated boot. You can get away with these in like cold 0 degree weather or -5 if you are constantly moving. But as soon as you stand still, you're going to feel the cold. So be aware of that. But I've been rucking with these in the snow, so I was constantly moving in the city, so I'm not too worried about it. All right, look at those. Getting squared away. Let me get these laces in and then we're done. Make sure we're even here. Perfect. The laces it comes with are just your standard sort of braided lace with some type of, I I'm not even sure if they have a core. They don't. Yeah, they have a core. Some type of nylon, white nylon core, almost like a paracord lace. Very common in boots. It's been fine. So you know what? I am not going to lace these sections because I just don't want it to pull on it. And I honestly don't think you need that section anyways. It'll leave my laces a little long, but I tuck them in anyway, so it doesn't matter. Nice. There you go. So I'll zoom in. So you look at how they're laced here. I'm skipping this, and I'm skipping this. And there's not even too much lace left over, right? So it's not bad at all. And it'll still lock your foot in well enough, and I don't have to risk pulling on it. Again, I don't want to sound like every Lowa will fail because they've sold millions of these and they've been good and people swear by them. But just for me, don't care, don't need it. All right, let's get this in. Tread on these is great. You saw them caked up with mud. They don't hold things too much. I always put the inside on the bottom. So I always lace it through, so this is underneath the cross. And that's just a habit I do on both sides. I don't think there's any benefit or consequence to however you do it. But yeah, inflation. It's getting up there. $400. It's wild. You're getting into like custom boot territory. You could buy a pair of Knicks for, I think, for as low as what? 600 Canadian, 700 Canadian? All right. Beautiful. Look at those. Squared away. Nice and treated. Lowa Z8s. Definite recommendation. Get them if you can. They're awesome. Thanks a lot, guys. Take it easy.